Hey, what's up, everybody? We're back. I'm Irving Fryar. I'm the host here, and this is the Fryar Place, where the conversations are fire. Good to see everybody. There's 6 of you on already. I know you were waiting. We're a little bit late, but that's all right. And stop tripping. That's right. I got my Miami gear on. I told you my brothers from down at the Dolphins sent me some gear last week, and I'm wearing my gear. Yes, I am an Eagles fan, but I am a Miami Dolphins alumni. So I'm valid. I'm on solid ground. This is legitimate. Don't hate, celebrate, participate, appreciate the Dolphins gear. Yeah. And I'm the cat with the hats too. Good to see you, Hope. Good to see you, Rashida. What's going on? Let me put this on so you can see me right in front. There are 6 or 7 of you on right now. Y'all chime in. Let me know that you're in the house. All right. Real quick before we get to our guest, remember we are on. Well, actually, go to Press and Sew to get our gear. That's where we go. Press and Sew, PRSS, and the letter N, SOW.com/TFP. That's the Fryar Place. Check out our merch, the Fryar Place hats, T-shirts, sweatshirts. Come on in the room. When you buy our merchandise, all the proceeds go to charity. All right, go to Press and Sew. Check out our merchandise. We got several T-shirts now that we're working on. Pause, Pray, Pursue. There's one Made to Move Forward. So go check it out, y'all, at Press and Sew, PRSS, the letter N, SOW.com/TFP. All right. Don't forget we're on iHeartRadio. You download the iHeartRadio app on your phone or your mobile device and go in and search the Fryar Place, tap it, and we're right there. If you can't watch us live, maybe you're driving, maybe at your work, but you can listen to us. You'll hear us, the audio of the Fryar Place episodes on iHeartRadio. We appreciate all of that. We appreciate iHeartRadio. What's up, Mama? How you doing? I told our guest you would be in today or be with us today. Good to see everybody. Y'all come on in the room. We have a wonderful guest today. I know I don't tell you who our guests are going to be on a weekly basis because I want you to be intrigued. I want you to be curious. I want you to come on in the room and watch when we're live. I also want you to ask questions. This is a first-timer, I should say, on the Fryar Place. We've had many different types of guests, whether it be football players. We've had, receivers, quarterbacks, linebackers. We've had therapists on the Fryar Place. We've had financial experts on the Fryar Place. We've had my daughter on the Fryar Place, daddy, daughter. That was a great episode. We've had just people, well, actually musicians and singers on the Fryar Place. It's been great. But today is a first timer. Yeah, we have someone who was in a profession that we've never had on the Fryar Place before. Richard, what's going on? So before I bring him in, he's legitimate too, y'all. Bad dude. I want you to watch this.
High drive left field by the rookie. High into the pale sky and into the screen for a homer.
Greatest power year in American League history. Bret Boone is in the house. Y'all welcome Bret Boone is in the house. Yes. That's me. I put the applause on there. That's not the people.
I love it. I love it.
We were just talking about podcasting and all that kind of stuff, and I tried to do the best that I can. Man, listen, I've never had a professional baseball player on the show before. This is a first time for the Fryar place. I've done my research. Hopefully, prayerfully, I'll ask you questions and keep this thing going to where it makes sense and I won't screw it up.
Don't screw it up, Irving.
Don't screw it up.
I appreciate you having me on.
Well, Bret, listen, I just want to read some stats, okay, just so the people know. I mean, maybe most of them are not necessarily baseball fans. I'm not necessarily a baseball fan. I'm a fan of particular athletes. I know about your family. I know a little bit about you. We're kind of, I guess, developing a relationship here now because I'm going to be on your podcast. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But man, you 3-time All-Star. Well, 14 years in Major League Baseball. That's phenomenal. 3-time All-Star, 4-time Gold Glove winner. That's awesome. 2-time Silver Slugger Award winner. What is that? I don't know what that is.
I knew you were going to say.
Yeah, what's that? What's that?
Silver Slugger is a yearly award they give out to the best offensive player at their position. Like the Gold Glove is the best defender at your position. Silver Slugger's best offensive.
Got you.
Your position.
Got you. And you are third generation. When you guys hear his story, his father's Bob Boone. I don't know if you know about Bob Boone. That's a familiar name here in the area of Philadelphia. Catcher Bob Boone. His grandfather was it Ray Boone?
Ray Boone.
Ray Boone. 13 years in Major League. He batted 275. His average was 275 over 13 years. He's a bad boy. He's a bad boy.
That was my guy, man. Gramps. You know, we lost Gramps a few years back, but it was probably my earliest influence, Grandpa. And we were really tight. And he was probably when I was born in my early years, Grandpa was probably had the most influence on me because my dad was just getting out of college and he was going into professional baseball. So I spent a lot of my early years, you know, between the ages of 1 and 3 with Grandpa. So I'd be pulling him out of bed at 5 in the morning, putting that catcher's gear on. Let's go, Gramps. But he was cool. He was a good man and pretty cool.
Yeah. So what's up, Troy, Oglesby, Vincent, Capriati? They're coming on in the room. It's going to be good today. So your dad was Bob Boone, World Series with the Phillies, 1980.
Right.
Bad dude, catcher. I mean, I'm not, like I said, a baseball fan, but I know Bob Boone. I know who Bob Boone is. Ray Boone, your grandfather, 13 years in Major League Baseball, batted 275. Then your brother is Aaron Boone, who played and actually is the manager for the Yankees right now.
That's right.
They're losing. They're down by 2.
Yeah. Down 0-2. He's in a rough spot.
But you're a third generation Major League Baseball player. That had never happened before until you came along. You played for the Seattle Mariners, the Cincinnati Reds, Atlanta Braves, San Diego Padres, back to the Seattle Mariners, then ended up finished your career in 2005 with the Minnesota Twins. Man, that's first of all, let's talk about that. You were would you consider yourself to be a journeyman? I mean, do guys move around that much in baseball? Gus Frerotte was on my show last week, and he was a journeyman. He was quarterback. He was all over the place for the time that he played in the NFL. But, I mean, you have 5 or 6 teams here. Is that something that's normal when it comes to a Major League Baseball player?
Oh, yeah, especially nowadays.
Wow.
You know, it's quite the contrary. To stay with one team is very unordinary in today's times. I mean, I just had a guy recently on my podcast. He played with the California Angels for 15 years, and I was talking to him about it. I said, it's really unbelievable that you were with one team. That just doesn't happen anymore. I think, 30, 40, 50 years ago, it was more in fashion before free agency hit and became but nowadays, guys go where they go, and usually it's where the money is. So, it's very common nowadays to move quite a bit. Um, the Twins at the end, that was kind of I don't really count that. It was a rough time. I was on my way out, and I just we stopped by the Twins for about 6 weeks. But my I consider myself a Mariner. I started my career there. I ended
Okay.
my pretty much ended my career there. I had
Right.
six and a
Right.
half, 7 years. My best years were in Seattle. I also really enjoyed my time in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for 5 years, and San Diego was great from a weather standpoint. We weren't very
Right.
good.
Right.
My 1 year with the Braves, I got a chance to go to the World Series. We got beat by the Yankees, but nevertheless, we had a great year over there. So yeah, I don't consider, I don't think the industry would consider me a journeyman. But when I start thinking about all the places, Irving, you got a
Right.
point.
Yeah. It's very interesting. When I was reading that or researching it, I'm like, wow, he played for a lot of teams, but I didn't know if that was common in Major League Baseball or not. And you kind of went over this for a second, but you talked about your better years. You and I have something in common. Our better years were our latter years in our 30s.
Right.
I played better in my 30s than I did in my 20s, and you did the same thing. You played in the latter part of your career was better than the beginning of your career. What did you do for that to happen? What changes did you make? Whether it was your approach to the game, whether it was your attitude, whatever it was, what was it that you did that allowed you to play better in your 30s, which is not necessarily normal at that level?
Right.
What were the changes that took place in your life?
Well, the way I was brought up, it was, you mentioned my grandfather at the top, and in Graham's generation, uh, there was no such thing as training. It was like, I'm a
Right,
ball player. I don't lift weights.
right.
My dad started to the in his career. He started to train. And he introduced that to me. I was that naive kid, house on fire. Just get me to the ballpark and let me swing hard. And I'm a ball player, and I don't go to the gym. I'm a baseball player, and I had that approach. And some of my younger years, I was just kind of see ball, hit ball. I was a man. I love the game so much. I love to play defense. A
Uh-huh.
lot of people, they love to hit. I love to hit, but I love to play defense. I love to take hits away from people. I got to a point in my career about midway where I kind of made a decision, and I said, I want to see what I can be. I want to get the most out of uh, my ability level. I want to see what I can do. I started training, and not only with the training, I supplemented things in my life that I had never done before. I started to really study the game from the mental side.
Mm-hmm.
The hitting side was no, everybody knows the fundamentals of hitting. Yeah, I know the fundamentals of my swing. I know the physical part,
Right.
but what's the mental side? How do I prepare to be as successful as I can be over a 162 game schedule? So what I did is I started studying the greatest hitters in the game, especially, and I even cut it down, not the greatest hitters, but the greatest right-handed hitters. So
Mm-hmm.
somebody of my likeness.
Nice.
And I started studying what did they do in the box that I don't do, and I started picking the brain. I had a teammate in Seattle when I came back to Seattle the second time. His name is Edgar Martinez, and he's considered one of the best right-handed hitters of my generation. And he became my teammate, and I really sat down with him in about 2001 is when things changed, and I just had a talk with him. I said, "Tell me how you do it. How have you done this, this, this?" He went through it with me. I started implementing. I started listening and implementing some of the suggestions he gave me,
Right.
and I started to become a mature, smart, thinking player versus like I mentioned, house on fire guy just going out there, see ball, hit ball.
Right.
And it's
Right.
amazing, and then I look back. Uh, and I don't have too many regrets in my life. We live and we learn. Of course, we could all go back and change things in our life and make things a little simpler. But
Sure.
I think that's what life's about. It's
Right.
about bumping your head and getting up off the ground, dusting yourself off, and going forward. I like to tell that to my kids because they bump their head a lot. Um, but yeah, man, I get a 21-year-old now or a 20-year-old kid that's just getting into professional baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, if I can give him what I had at the age of 30, man, does he have a head start in life? What if I would have done that starting at 21? Well, I didn't. And things worked out pretty good for me. I'm glad I figured it out when I did
Right.
for the second half of my career. But not don't really have any regrets. It's a learning process. It's life. We're constantly learning. We're moving forward now. Uh, I'm 53 years old,
Oh,
and
you're
I look
just
back
you're
at,
just a spring chicken.
yeah, I look back at that 30-year-old and I laugh
Yeah,
because I remember that 30-year-old was looking at that 20-year-old and laughing. So
right.
I'm sure Irving, when I'm 70, I'm going to be looking at this guy today and laughing like he thought he knew everything and he doesn't. We're always learning.
Right. I look back at myself when I was 22, 23 years old, and I say, what in the world were you thinking? What in the world was I thinking? but
The
but
only good thing about us is it's not everything's not on, you know, on
back
social media
yeah,
because
back
back
then.
then,
Yeah.
right, nowadays
You made the
it's
newspaper for a
documented,
couple of days
right?
and then it was gone pretty much.
Right. You can hide it. You can hide it. Today you can't hide
No, you
anything.
can't hide it anywhere. But that's it's almost it's familiar. The transition that you made in the middle of your career was kind of the way maybe the game was going because the same thing kind of happened to me, and that is what I attribute my success in the latter part of my career more so than the beginning of my career was that things started transitioning where players were training during the off season because when I first started playing ball in 1984 guys weren't training all year long. There were none of these off-season programs and all that kind of stuff. And then those things started happening about halfway through my career. And that actually, as far as lifting weights and specific training, position-specific training, and things like that. And those things really started to enhance my physical ability, which obviously helps your mental ability. And my game just went to another level. So, and then also going down and playing for the Miami Dolphins. Having the ball thrown to me by Dan Marino, that also helped. What was it like? I mean, you and your brother, you're in the dugout with Pete Rose and Greg Lazinski's son and Ryan McGraw. What was that like growing up? I mean, you were in it, man. You were there amongst some great peers and great predecessors.
Well, that's another thing. I mean, when we're kids, we're so naive. And I look back on my childhood now and I have such fond memories and realize how fortunate I was to grow up the way I did. When you're a kid going through it, you don't think like that. You
Right.
think, no, this is what daddy does for a living. Everybody else go to work with dad day. Well, I go to Veteran Stadium and I hang out with Pete Rose and Mike Schmidt and Tug McGraw and those guys. And it was just what my life was like. The cool thing about growing up, and still to this day, I have some childhood friends from back in the Philly days, the mid late 70s. When
Mm-hmm.
I'm 8, 9, 10 years old, my buddies were great. They never treated me any different. Almost made fun of me because you think you're cool because your dad plays for the, but they never made me feel like I was any different than them. And
Mm-hmm.
and that was the neat thing about my childhood. Yeah, I got to do things. I got to ride on the float in Philly for the parade after they won the 1980 World Series. That was normal to
Nice.
me. It's like, no, that's what we do. You win the World Series, then my dad's got to go to this float tomorrow, so I'll just jump on there with him. To this day, my mom's got pictures of me on the float, and I'm thinking, how cool is that?
Right.
We don't think
Right.
about it. We don't appreciate it when we're 10, 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But looking back, I was so fortunate. uh, I learned so many lessons, and but then when it came down for my time to start playing professionally, I remember, the questions you get from the press is, well, it must be a lot easier for you because you grew up in a big league clubhouse. And I said, yeah, I grew up in a big league clubhouse as a little kid running around being a pain in the neck to everybody. Now this is my job.
Right.
If I don't do my job, I get fired.
That's right.
Um, but I think there were definitely positive things about the upbringing, about my life, and when I look at it, I think, did it help me? Did it? I'll tell you, I don't know how much it helped me, but I know one thing: I know it didn't hurt me being
Yeah.
around that atmosphere. The upside was I got to go to the ballpark and hang out once in a while. My dad would let me go on a road trip with him,
Mm-hmm.
and man, those days, if Dad told me I couldn't go, that was like the end of the world for me. I just loved this game and being around all the guys so much. Um, but the only negative was Dad didn't get to watch me play much
Right.
because you think about it, we get out of school, we got
Mm-hmm.
little league at 3 o'clock. If we had a little league game, well, Dad's going to the ballpark at 3 o'clock.
Hmm.
So he never got to see me play. A little bit when I got to college, he got to sneak by. That could be a good thing and a bad thing. So I wasn't critiqued that much by my
Right.
dad because he was never wrong. Mom was around, and she's
Uh-huh.
mom. She's anything I do is the greatest of all time.
Right.
So, but it was a unique childhood. Uh, but a very cool one. And even to this day, some of my greatest memories, uh, athletically, we all go through our careers. We play our career. Yeah, I got to go to World Series, All-Star games. I got to do this, that. That was all great. Some
Hmm.
of my fondest memories are still when I was 10, 11 years old, my little league days.
Yeah, mine too. Just because I was a kid and didn't have any responsibilities.
And you mentioned the Philly thing. Growing up in Philly as a kid, oh, it was awesome. It was the Sixers, and it
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
Eagles,
Right.
and the Flyers, and
Hmm.
the NBA was my favorite time in the NBA. We had short shorts. We had Julius Irving with the red, white, and blue ball. It's coming over from
Yeah.
the ABA.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just love those times, and it brings me back anytime uh, I see old clips. That just brings back childhood memories. And growing up in Philly was really cool too. What a baseball city, or I'm sorry, what a sports city.
Right. Right. You mentioned going, your father taking you, Bob Boone taking you out on away games, road trips with the team. What you played your college ball at USC, and then you left your junior year and drafted in the fifth round. What was that transition like? Because I think Major League Baseball, as far as I know, it's a little bit, well, it's a lot different than the NFL. We go on road. When we go on the road, we leave on Saturday afternoon, fly wherever we're going to go, and spend the night in a hotel, get up Sunday morning, go to the game, play the game, and then right after the game, about 3 or 4 hours, maybe 5 hours after the game, we're back on a plane going back home.
Right.
Baseball, you're away for a week, 2 weeks, sometimes longer than
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
talk about that.
It's a different life. Well, I'd say that it's an adjustment up the ladder. You start in high school, you play X amount of games. You get to college, they stretch you out to about 65, 70 games for a season. Um, Pro ball, now it's 142 games in the minor leagues, 162 in the big leagues.
Hmm.
And it's definitely adjustment. At the time I left college, my junior year, I got drafted at a high school late. I think I was a 29th round pick. It wasn't even an option for me. I was going to USC.
Hmm.
Of course, I was 18 years old, and I'm the greatest player in the world. And if you don't know that, just ask me. I'll tell you. So that was disappointing that I got drafted low. Looking back on that, I had a lot to learn, and college was the best thing for me. It enabled me to get away from mom and dad. Yet
Right.
mom and dad were only 45 minutes away,
Hmm.
and mom could bring me my laundry on the weekends, but she wasn't there. So I had to grow up a little bit, juggle classes,
Hmm.
uh, monitor or get my way through college life. So there was a little maturation process for me. And by the time I was a junior and I got drafted in the fifth round, I was ready to go. I got to the minor leagues, hit the ground running, and got to the big leagues fairly quick. Took me about just short of 2 years to get to the major leagues. But minor leagues was kind of easy for me. I was ready physically, mentally. It wasn't that big of a deal. Big leagues was a different ball game. I got to the big leagues and thought I was just going to tear it up like I did in
Right.
A ball and Double A and Triple A. And like a lot of kids in that time, there was some humble pie. That first month and a half for me in the big leagues, I remember coming in after a game, I was hitting 197, and I had a buddy of mine who was a player that had a little experience at the big league level. And I looked at him. I think we were both having a beer. I looked at him. I said, man, the big leagues is tough. And he looked at me, started laughing, and he said, basically without saying, you know what I'm saying, no blank. Uh, and I remember going home that off season and said, I've got to make an adjustment here. The minor leagues is one thing. The big leagues, it's a different animal. And
Hmm.
I prepared for the next season, went up and down from AAA to the big leagues, and finally made that adjustment. And that's what you've got to do at the highest level, because this game will pass you by. And as soon as you make an adjustment, those big league pitchers are going to make an adjustment to you. So it's time to make another adjustment.
Wow.
But it was a learning process. It was the first time that I had really Had a tough time on the baseball field. My debut, my first month and a half in the big leagues, but it was definitely a learning moment for me, and it really benefited me later in my career because the struggles they're just not a one time thing.
Right. Right.
4 years later, I went through a similar thing, and I was a little better equipped to deal with it. The second time, I remember the last time I went through this. This is what I did. I
Right.
got back to the drawing board. I made that adjustment and moved on. And it makes those great years uh, so much sweeter.
Hmm.
Realize how hard it is to play at that highest level, at that all-star
Right.
level.
Right.
It's really gratifying because, man, it's not easy. It's so hard and really cool. And I just try to, like I said, when I'm talking to those young kids today or my kids, sharing my story and my experience, my journey. If I
Hmm.
can help my son right now is in the minor leagues, and he's got questions all the time. Real
Right.
smart, graduated from Princeton,
Wow.
but he still has questions about the game. Dad, what did you do? It's really cool right now sitting down watching a playoff game. Well, we're making fun of his uncle because they're getting a bunch. No, I'm kidding. But we'll be watching a Yankee
We're gonna
game.
talk about that a little bit later on. Yeah.
We'll be watching a playoff game right now, and it's just father son, and
Right.
he's got a question for me. He said,
Yeah.
Dad, what did you look for in this situation? And it wasn't, all right, he's asking me a question. No, it's okay. And I try to put myself back when I was 22 years old. Okay, I don't want to overwhelm him with
Yes.
anything. Just
Right.
softly give him the answer that he's looking for. I'm not one of those dad that's in your face. I never call him.
Hmm.
I watch all his games, on the computer. And some days I want to call him and say, man, you got to do this.
Right.
I wait for him to call me. He'll call me when he's ready because
Right.
I know what it's like being there and having a dad and a grandfather calling you all the time. Brett, what are you doing today? My grandpa was like, Gramps can get away with it.
Right. Why is
Irving,
that? Yeah. Grandfathers.
Oh,
Yeah. With
I'll tell you,
grandchildren. Yeah. There's a special relationship.
he lived in San Diego. We'd come play the Padres, be on a road trip, no matter what team I was on. And, I'd have a great game. I'd be 3 for 4. I hit a 3-run homer, made a couple great plays. And after the game, Grandpa'd be waiting for me. And he'd look at me and he said, hey, guys did all right today. Let's talk about that fourth at bat. You chase that. What are you doing? And I'd look at Gramps with that smile because I knew that was his personality. He cannot go to the positive. He's got to go to that one thing he didn't do well. And I'd say, Gramps. But I knew that was his personality, and I knew he
Right.
cared.
Right.
And I knew how proud he was of me.
Hmm.
But in front of my face, oh no, he had to keep me in line.
And that's probably how he addressed himself when he was playing ball.
Without a
He
doubt.
if he was 3 for 4 at the bat that day, he's looking at that 0 for that one time. What
Right.
did I do wrong? I didn't have a perfect day. I didn't have a good day because I went 3 for 4. I should have went 4 for 4. So
Well, Irving, you had 12 catches for 220 yards. What happened to that 13th? You dropped
yeah.
it.
Oh, I do.
6 yards.
I do the same thing to myself all the time. I don't remember necessarily or celebrate all of the victories and the good times. I remember and am still haunted by, a drop pass or a lost game somewhere, sometime I didn't do something that I was supposed to do or played a bad half or whatever it was. Those bad times are the things that I didn't do right are the things that I really remember. And it just kind of needles me and it keeps me going and seeking perfection, although we'll never reach
Well,
perfection.
isn't it amazing though when they'll come to you and say, "Wow, that was really great." Like you said, contrasting the bad with the good.
Right.
It's like, well, that was a great play. But that's how I expect to play.
Right.
And the reason the bad ones, the drop passes haunt you is because that's not what I expect out of myself. Yeah, that great when I went up and got it and beat that guy that beat that double coverage
Right.
and I got it, I expect to do that. But
Yep.
I didn't expect to miss that one pass. So you're right. As athletes,
Exactly.
we are. I had 3 for 4, but you know what? I should have got to that ball. I didn't make that play. I should have turned that double play, and I didn't.
Yep.
That's what gets at me.
That's
you know?
yep. And that's
I
what
think
makes
as athletes, it keeps us going.
great players because they don't settle for imperfection. We want it to be right all the time. We want to play our best all the time. We want to put on a good showing each and every time we're out there. You talked about, your grandfather. You got a family that's a baseball family. You come from you're in a baseball. Your grandfather, your father, your brother. all of y'all play baseball at the highest level. And you talked about the pressure that you kind of put on yourself, having going back and forth from the minors and then finally getting it and making it into the major leagues and maintaining the major league level of play. So that was a pressure that was on you. But now you got family too now. Like you said, your grandfather, your dad, your brother. Was there any pressure? Did you put any pressure on yourself? Was there any pressure, maybe not from them, but because of the type of background you had, your family? Did that cause any pressure in how you played or your thinking?
I didn't feel pressure ever. My dad, and this is attributed to my dad and my grandpa and my mother and my upbringing. Dad never put any pressure. It was always, here's the game. Here's kind of the family business. This is what I do. This is what your grandpa do. Hopefully you'll want to do it. But they were supportive in whatever I pursued. I just happened to love baseball from the earliest I can remember. That's all I wanted to do. I was that kid in 8th grade. What are you going to do when you get older? Well, I'm going to be a big league baseball player for sure. It's already
Mm-hmm.
done. And that's how I thought. I didn't feel any pressure. I got to the minor leagues. I expected, I actually had some resentments towards people that would bring it up, like
Mm-hmm.
especially in the minor leagues. I pull into a new city, and the first question would be,
Right.
"Well, there's big shoes to fill." Your
Right.
dad and I got so sick of hearing it after a
Right.
while. It was like, screw my dad and screw my grandpa. I love them to death. They
But
did what
screw 'em.
they did, but I'll tell you what, they're not going to help me get there just
Right.
because daddy and grandpa did what they did. I've got to still perform. So I became kind of resentful, and I had a big chip on my shoulder. I said, I'm sick of talking about them. Talk about me. Talk about what I'm doing on the field. And it took about a year in the big leagues before all that subsided. Once you kind of solidify yourself and
Right.
and prove
Right.
that you
That
belong
you
there,
belong there.
now
Yeah.
they talking about your stuff.
Right. Right.
But it took a long time. I've also, as I got older now, I've realized that's a part of my life, and it's a proud part of my life. I'm
Yes.
proud as heck for my dad. I'm
Mm-hmm.
proud as heck my grandpa, my brother, what he accomplished. Man, that's a proud moment for my family, and that'll always be a part of my family. I don't resent it as much now,
Uh-huh.
talking about it. I
Right.
think it's a cool thing, but when you're a young man trying to establish yourself at the highest level. It gets a little frustrating when that's all they want to talk about. But you take care of business, you do your job, you make an all-star team, and now they won't talk about it anymore. They'll talk about the next thing.
Right. Right. You're right. Your brother, again, as we said, your brother he's the manager of the Yankees right now, but you and your brother played at the same time. Was there a competition going? I mean, was there competition between the two of you? I mean, how many home runs
Well,
you got? How many home runs he got? Because I know for me, I didn't have a brother, but I had a couple of friends that I played with that were receivers in the NFL. When I played on the first team, then we went to different teams. We started competing against each other. We compare our stats from week to week to see who got more catches, who got more yards, who got more touchdowns. And we do that over the course of the next few seasons. So you got your brother. I know if I had a brother and we were playing the same sport at the same level, we would be competing. Was that did you guys have that going on between the two of you?
I'll tell you, if you look at the numbers, there really was no competition when it came to Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kidding.
No, let's see. Yep, bragging rights. I got you.
No, he's. I'll tell you, Aaron was 4 years younger than me.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just in that age as a kid where sometimes we let you tag along with the older guys. Aaron was always well liked. My buddies loved having Aaron around. They'd always ask, "Hey, Aaron can come and hang out, and if he can't play in the game because it's the kids are too big for him, he can announce from the sideline." Aaron used to do that all the time. He used to be the announcer. We'd play these dunk ball games in my buddy's garage in New Jersey, and if the kids were a little too big and too physical for him at the time, with a fake microphone, and he would announce games. I mean, it was great. Aaron was very well liked with my friends. So we never really played at the same level, if that makes sense. I was 10, he was 6. I'm
Right.
16, he's 12. We never went to high school together. We never went to college together.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron and I were never really competitive at all. We were just very supportive of one another. We got to play together in 1998.
Right.
He was a third baseman. I was a second baseman.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
then there were
looking
two.
back at
There were two brothers. What was it? The Larkins brothers. Yeah,
Larkins,
yeah.
yeah,
They were the other two in the infield. That was like history.
right. And you look back at it. Once that game started, it was cool to have my brother around. I could spend a little time with him. But once
Hmm.
that game started, he was just my third baseman, and he
Right.
better give me a good feed on that double play
There
ball.
you
That's all
go.
I cared about. I didn't play that. You know, we didn't care that it was the brother thing. So we never had really a competitive relationship. We always had a very supportive relationship, and throughout
Nice.
our career, we'd always talk once a week on the phone. Hey, how you doing? You know, I see you're swinging the bat well. You're not swinging the bat well. What's going on? You know, so we were always very supportive,
Nice.
never really competing like to one up one another. It
Hmm.
was a different relationship. I think brothers that are closer in age, there's probably a lot more competition because maybe they were in high school on the
Right.
same team,
Right.
you know, playing against each other at the same level.
Hmm.
I could see the competitive there, but mine was more of a big brother taking care of a little brother. And
That's
then
cool.
as we both blossomed and became adults, it was a mutual thing.
That's cool. That's cool. So do you still? I mean, we're running out of time, but I got a couple more questions for you. Great interview today. We might have to have you back on the show. But anyway, do you still follow the game today? Are you still? I mean, what are you doing right now?
Yeah, I do probably 4 or 5 shows a week, just updating and giving my analysts
Nice.
of what's going on in the game of baseball. Right now, we're in the playoffs, so I've got a couple of shows. I'm going to break down the Padres in the Phillies series, and then I got to break down, you know, what are the Yankees and Houston going to do. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm getting back in the game right now. Some TV and some radio stuff. We'll see where that goes. I'm doing the podcast, so I'm pretty busy. I'm pretty busy, as you know, with these podcasts. They take up a lot of your time, but they're really interesting content. I've learned a lot. It's been a humbling thing for me. You know, you think you could just jump on and go, oh, I can be great at doing this, but it takes a little bit of time, and it takes some trial and error. It takes some, you know, I use the analogy all the time, bumping your head a little bit and
Right.
learning from it.
Yeah.
But it's a different chapter of life, uh, and I'm enjoying doing it. And you know, watching Aaron right now is something I got to pull for him. At the same time, man, Houston's tough.
Houston's
Houston's
tough. They're
they're
they're tough,
no,
and
they're good top to bottom.
this podcast thing is. I mean, that's why we were a little bit late today because my cameras went out right before we were supposed to come on. So you never know whether it's whether it's your guest doesn't show up, whether it's your equipment, the internet can act up. It can be crazy. So yes, it is a challenge. But like you, just like you, I love doing this. Listen, Stuart Winrow, good to see you. Andy Lesnick. Andy used to be a professional baseball player. So Andy, if you have a question, come on, right? Put a Q, then a semicolon, and ask your question so we can ask it to Bret. You might have a real insightful question that some of us won't know about. Vinny, good to see you. Sally Davis, thanks for joining in. Stu Winrow, thank you. C. Antonio Knight, what's going on, man? Steve Andrews is in the house. Keenan is in the. We got a whole bunch of folk listening right now. Y'all throw some questions out for my guest, Bret Boone. Come on now. You guys got some questions. I know you do for him. So I'll look for them. Throw a Q up and a semicolon. That way I know it's a question. It'll catch my eye and I can throw it in. I've got a couple more questions before we get out of here. And hopefully we'll get a question from our viewers. But you have an autobiography that's out. And I'm talking to you, Bret.
Yeah,
You have an
it's been a while.
autobiography. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a while, but the title really caught my eye. Home Game, Big League Stories from My Life in Baseball's First Families. You guys are like the Mannings in football. Baseball's first family. What talk about the autobiography, man? That's awesome. That is awesome.
Came to me a few years ago, and publishing company, you know, hey, would you write a book? Absolutely not. You know, that was my first thought is I don't write books. You know, I'm a baseball player, and what goes on in that clubhouse stays in that clubhouse. That's all how I was brought up. But then they posed it to me in a different way. It's no, we don't want gossip and stuff like that. We want what was it like your family? What was it like growing up with a grandpa? And when they posed it to me like that, I thought, you know, that would be pretty cool. And it was a process. Once again, another venture, another learning process where it was a weekly thing where I had a ghostwriter and he'd call me with a bunch of questions, and man, I'd talk for a half hour, and then we'd edit that down and get it. The thing that was cool about that book, it got me to relive my childhood. It got me, and I mentioned how close I was with my grandfather.
Hmm.
And when he was still here, he'd tell me Ted Williams stories, and I mean, he'd tell me 100 Ted Williams stories, and he'd tell me about Bob Feller and how he's better than the players today. And
Wow.
me and Gramps used to banter about that. But then when he's gone, I wish he could tell me a Ted Williams story one
Yeah.
more time.
Yeah.
So this was an opportunity for me to kind of go through my childhood uh, and really appreciate what I had. Because when we're going through it, I don't think we appreciate it. As we
Right.
get older, we do.
Yeah.
And it was a very humbling thing for me. Like, man, you know how lucky I was. And then to go through my career, because when we go through our career, we're not always appreciating. We're not always smelling the roses,
Right.
because we got to worry about, you got to worry about next Sunday,
Right.
and that defense.
Yeah.
I've got to worry about facing Randy Johnson tomorrow and Pedro
Ooh.
Martinez.
Yeah.
And we don't stop and enjoy what we get to do for a living. Putting this uniform on our back, I think when we're playing, sometimes we take it for granted. Like, no, this is what we do. And then one day when it's all done, you look back and go, wow, that was pretty cool. Not too many people get to do this. So it was just kind of a trip down memory lane right in the book. And I ended up kind of enjoying it because it brought back a lot of cool memories. And that was probably 6-7 years ago that I
Right.
wrote that.
Yeah.
So when you
Yeah.
brought it up, it doesn't get brought up all the time now, but I remember, go, yeah, that was a pretty cool time.
No, I think that's awesome. An autobiography is outstanding because you get a chance. Yeah, you're not actually writing it, but you're articulating it, and someone else is
Right.
writing it. But you have to pull that stuff out of you. You have to pull it from the inside out. So that's awesome, man. And it's a great story. I got another question that came up while you were just talking. You're going against this kind of pitching, and you're a great hitter, but you're going against these pitchers who throwing the ball 100 miles an hour. I was a decent baseball player coming out of high school. And actually, I was a better baseball player than I was a football player. And people really thought I was going to go pro in baseball. But for me, when I played baseball, I could always see how the threads on the ball were turning. And that helped me to determine whether it was a fastball or curveball. Not much more than that in high school. At that level, can you see the threads on the ball? What is it that you're actually looking for when you're because you don't have time to decide. The ball's coming so fast, you got to pull the trigger, or it's like that. You make up your mind. Okay, I'm not going to swing, or I'm going to swing. What are you looking for?
You can see the threads.
You can. Good. Oh, I didn't know. I never played at that level. Wasn't sure whether you could see the threads.
But it's it's like anything else. I get asked that question all the time. I don't know. I did it my whole life.
Uh-huh.
So it's when people ask me, well, how do you do it? Well, come watch me. This is how I do it, like this.
Right.
I do it like that.
Right. Right.
And you really don't think, how do I really do it? How do we all do it? I didn't look in a particular place. I looked at arm slots.
Right.
So if a pitcher came from here, if I was looking for a breaking ball, you can't really see it on the camera, but I'd look up here.
Right.
If it was a fastball, I'd look right
coming
here.
down.
Now, some
Yeah.
guy, the whole cat and mouse with hitting is getting you not to be able to recognize the thread.
Right.
So if you can't coming out of his hand,
Right.
now the game's on. Now
Right.
it's almost a guessing game.
Right.
I like to call it an educated guess,
Mhm.
or an educated approach, not a guess. I don't like that guess term because it makes you seem like you're getting lucky if you guess right. No, it's an approach.
Right.
But it's the game behind the game. It's for most guys, and I would say 80% of big league pitchers, I could go and I could look for a fastball and adjust to the breaking ball. The elite guys, a Randy Johnson in my area, is throwing 100 miles an hour, sliders 90. I'm not going to hit them both. I've got to get on one or the other.
Okay. Yeah.
And I can't waver from my approach. And if I go up there and say, today I'm going to get the breaking ball, I'm going to sit on the breaking ball. And I sit there for 5 pitches, he throws me 5 fastballs. I tip my cap. You won today's mental war,
Okay.
and I'll move on. That doesn't mean I I abandoned my approach.
Right. Right.
I'm gonna have my approach formulated tomorrow and execute it. I felt as I got older that was a big part of me growing up and becoming a better player is I really had that mental approach and I would stick with it for 162 games. And I felt if I don't waver, if I don't buckle because things don't go right in a particular at bat, I stick with that program. I give myself the best chance over the long haul to be as successful as I can be.
That's just interesting, and that's actually that's a nice nugget, man. That's pretty good because my approach when I played baseball was if the ball came anywhere near the plate, I'm hitting it.
My first half of my career, that's how I was too.
That was my approach. Listen, if it comes anywhere near that plate in my strike zone, I don't care if it's a strike or not. I'm hitting it.
Right.
Listen, we got a couple of questions from some of the people. So what I'm going to do is put the comments section up for us, and I'm going to have you answer a couple of these questions. Vinny Capriati, I don't know if you can see that or not, but he's asking, he says, how much better are pitchers today? Could Randy Johnson and Curt Schillings still be dominant today? Good question, Vinny.
How much better are they? I think the physical is up, the physicality. I think velocity is up a couple ticks on both the fastball and the slider. I don't think the actual art of pitching is better. I think the pitchers were more pitchers 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Today, the physicality is definitely at a higher level. The athlete today is a better athlete than it was 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
So the physical stuff is getting better. But on the other side, there's a yin to the yang. I look at my grandfather's era, and he wants to talk about Ted Williams. Could he play today? Well, Ted's not going to be like the modern day Mike Trout.
Right.
It's impossible. Babe Ruth's not going to be like a Barry Bonds. It just, that time and era doesn't really transcend. I think you've got to judge athletes and sports by their era. Pick the best players of their era, because you can't put Babe Ruth with a modern day player.
Right, because the era's changed. Yeah.
On the physical side, I always think about the NFL. If you put the Pro Bowl line from 1950 up against today's guys, how would they do?
They'd get killed. They get mauled.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean those guys in the 50s, the best of the best,
right? They were the best
players.
Yeah.
They were the greatest of their time.
That's right.
And so it's really tough to compare. I think Randy Johnson would still be pretty dominant. Schilling, he would be a really good pitcher, wouldn't be dominant. But Randy's so unique. He's 6'10".
Yeah.
He's throwing,
that ball's coming down.
Right. And he's a foot and a half closer to you when he releases the
ball
than
the
gosh. Average guy. So
Man.
I think Randy's so unique. He's left-handed. He's 6'10". He throws 100. He's mean as a snake.
Yeah.
I think Randy would, in his heyday, would still dominate today. I think Schilling would be a viable force. I don't know if he'd necessarily dominate like a Randy Johnson.
Right. I mean, and with saying your assessment, give me your assessment of today's game, because they're making some rule changes next year. They're putting a pitch clock. They're going to do a pitch clock. And they're also going to implement the fact that you can't make those shifts in the infield. You're going to have the second baseman and the shortstop got to be somewhere in the dirt on either side of the base. You can't shift out into the short center or short left. What do you think about that? What's your assessment of all that stuff?
The pitch clock to me is absurd. I think here's the problem with baseball right now. I think we have non-baseball people making baseball decisions. I think the fact of the pitch clock, it's like you're going to have a veteran pitcher. I'll give you a great example. Justin Verlander, who's probably going to win the Cy Young. He's 39 years old, pitched for the Houston Astros. He's been in the big leagues for 18 years, and all of a sudden you're going to tell him he's got to throw the next pitch within 18 seconds.
Wow.
That's not his routine.
Right.
If you want to implement that with the current minor league players and maybe 10 years from now, implement something like that, well, that's one thing. Once again, I think it gets back to non-baseball people making baseball decisions. When it comes to the shift, I'm not a fan of the shift. I think it's a wash at the end of the day if you play straight up. They played one way for 100 years. Nowadays, we're crazy with analytics and shifts. Um, so I'm not a fan of the shift. That being said, I'm also not a fan of you being able to tell somebody how to defense. If they want to shift, let them shift all they want. That's their prerogative as players. So I think taking away the shift, keeping you on the dirt, I think that's a little bit ridiculous. I understand they don't want all these crazy shifts. They want two infielders on both sides of the second base bag. But as far as not being able to come out of the dirt, that makes no sense to me. So once again, non-baseball people in the commissioner's office making baseball decisions.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. One last question? I got to get Keenan in here. Keenan Harmon, I did Keenan's wedding. I actually did Keenan's wedding last year at the Raiders game in L.A. Right before the game at one of the preseason or pregame analysis shows that I do. So I married him and his wife, at that tailgate.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a tailgate. Keenan says, has money changed things in pro sports? In your opinion, has money changed things in pro sports? I'll throw it back up there again.
I don't know exactly how you want me to answer that. Well, yes, money has changed things. I mean, I was in a generation where the pay was pretty darn good at the end. So I'm not going to sit here and complain. I look at the paychecks today and I go, wow.
Yeah, wow.
Average mediocre player making $15 million a year. Must be nice.
I was born 20 years too soon.
Right. And I'm not one of those guys that the old guy's
grouch,
shouldn't be getting paid. That right. No. The things I went through in the union, we went on a strike in 1994 and had the World Series canceled. My generation fought, my father's generation fought for what these players have today.
Right.
And I'm a firm believer that the reason the owners make so much money is because of the product on the field and those players, and they should be compensated. I look at it; it's a little daunting what people make now.
Yeah.
But I think I look at it like a movie star. If that movie brings in $200 million, well, then that movie star is worth $25 million for that film. It's supply and demand. If the revenue continues to go up and up and up, you can't do it without the players. The players are the reason the fans come out. I think and we don't probably have enough time for it. They like to, that's why beers cost $15. No, beers cost $15 because you will pay $15. As soon as you refuse to pay for that, right. That money will come down. That's what they like to do. Put it on the players. Their salaries. That's why we have to charge so much. That's not the reason you charge so much. You charge so much because we continue to pay it. Like when we pay $7 for a small popcorn at the movie theater. As soon as we stop paying $7, it'll be $3.50.
There you go.
But as long as we keep paying it, they're going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
I think it's changed in the fact that this athlete can be an athlete 12 months a year. He has a personal trainer and he has a nutritionist. That's from a fiscal. Back when my grandfather played, he had to get a job in the offseason.
Right. Yeah.
Nowadays, these guys are around-the-clock athletes. Best, and you're probably seeing it on the football side. The athletes today are far superior to the ones even 15 years ago, let alone 30 years ago. It's just a different animal out there. The athleticism I see, especially at the key positions,
right.
Shortstop, second base,
yeah.
It's better than I've ever seen. Now, that doesn't mean they're better players, but the physicality definitely is a different level.
Yep, they're different animals now for sure. All right, I'm going to let you go, but before I let you go, you got to give me the predictions. You got your brother Aaron and the Yankees. They're down by 2 games with the Astros. I need your prediction for that series, and I need your prediction for the Phillies Padres series. Because over here in Philadelphia, we're going crazy. Eagles are 6-0, and the Phillies are a couple of games away from the World Series. Man, we're just loving it over here.
Well, I think that the Yankees, Houston, if I break it down as an analyst, on paper, the Houston Astros are the best team in baseball.
Right.
And especially the best team left, and it's not even close. It's the Houston Astros and it's everybody else. Now, baseball being baseball, that doesn't mean you necessarily win in a short series. Anything can happen. Anybody can get hot. Aaron Judge hits a couple home runs. It changes the outlook of the game. That being said, being down 2-0 to the Houston Astros, that is a tough spot. I thought last night was a must-win for them. They ended up losing 3-2. If they were going to have a chance, I liked how it's set up because then you're going to have Cole and Nestor Cortez coming back for you in game 3 and 4. But the fact that you went down 0-2, man, I would be shocked if the Yankees were able to pull that out. So I'm going to take Houston to move on. In the Philly-Padres series, Nola and Wheeler at the top of the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
They can be dominant. They got to Nola, Padres did, and snuck out of there 1-1. I think offensively, the Phillies have the edge, but in the postseason, I'm always going to lean heavier on my pitching. I think that Padres pitching depth is deeper than the Phillies, so I'm going to go with the Padres in that series. They have Musgrove going today. Philly doesn't have anybody they can counter a Musgrove with, if that makes sense.
Right.
I think the Padres have 3 frontline starters, and I think the Phillies have 2, and that's the difference. So in a 1-1 state, I'm going to go with the longer strength of the starting rotation. So I'm going to go with the Padres. Padres, Houston. Then I think in the World Series, I think that's an easy one for me too. Houston is a far superior team.
Wow.
They just don't have a weakness. They don't have a weakness.
Wow. Yeah,
They're like robots.
Yeah, they're playing, man. They're tough.
Really good.
And the Phillies
really
do. They have a good top 4 pitching staff, but the Padres top 4 is better than the Phillies top 4.
Correct.
But the Phillies top 2 are better than the Padres top 2. Would you say that?
On a given day,
okay.
Yu Darvish is pretty
Right.
tough, and he's been really tough the last month.
Right.
Blake Snell, he's had a lot of up and down since he came over from Tampa Bay, but when he's on, he's effective a lefty as there is in the game. And this Musgrove kid's been dealing now for 2 years. He's just a bulldog. He's going today. He's tough to beat. So that's the wild card for me though. That third starter.
Right.
They have nobody to really counter Musgrove.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once again, it is baseball. I live in San Diego, but I'm partial to the Philly. So I kind of, if I got to put my fan hat on,
all right,
I'm kind of secretly pulling for Philly.
There you go. That's all right.
Even though I live in San Diego, now the San Diego people are going to be pissed.
That's okay.
What are you gonna do?
It's all right. Like I said, I got Miami gear on. I'm a Philadelphia fan,
That's
so
right.
they'll trip for a little while, but they'll get over it.
Yeah.
Brett, thanks for
Not
being.
that important.
Thanks for being. Yeah. It's not that important to us.
Right.
Have you've been around Philadelphia fans, haven't you?
Ooh, it's important to them.
I went to Arizona last week or 2 weeks ago with the Eagles fans. It's important.
Oh,
it's important.
EAGLES Eagles. I got you.
You got it, man. Listen,
cheesesteak and a hoagie, and let's watch an Eagles game.
Yes, sir. Listen, thank you for being with me today on the Fryar Place with the Conversations of Fire, because today was definitely a hot conversation, man. You were great. Thank you for all the insight. Thank you for being so open and honest about things you're doing and what has happened in your life, your career, your family, all of that, man. It was just absolutely phenomenal today. We had a great show, and I just want to, again, with everybody watching, everybody listening, let's thank Bret Boone. Y'all throw in the chat. Thank you, Bret Boone. Let's thank Bret Boone for being with us at the Fryar Place today. Listen, man, I'm going to be on your podcast next Wednesday. Y'all, what's the name of your podcast? How can we find it?
It's just Bret Boone Podcast.
Okay.
Go to BretBoonePodcast.com, or you can find it anywhere. It's on all the platforms. But BretBoonePodcast.com is my website where you can see all the episodes.
Nice.
They come out on Tuesdays and Fridays.
Okay, Tuesdays and Fridays. So we're taping on Wednesday, and it'll be out next Friday, a week from today.
It'll probably be out the following Tuesday.
Okay, all right. Well, Bret, you know what? Bret promised me he's going to send me an advertisement when it's going to air, and I'll make sure I throw it in all of our social media places. So, thank you, Bret. Appreciate you, man. And I thank you for getting up, because you're in California. Thank you for getting up early. Not necessarily early. That's part of our routine.
Not early. Yeah, we got it going. It was the Irving Fryar show. I had to be.
I appreciate you for responding when I asked. You said yes, no hesitation, and I'll do the same. I'll return the favor, man. So we'll talk to you Wednesday. God bless you, man. Keep up the great work.
All right, man.
All right, good to see you.
Irving.
All right, thank you. Yo, that was great.
Cool.
Thanks, Bret. Oh, I'm on, Bret. You're still. We can still hear you.
Okay.
You're in the
Here. See
you're in
you
the
guys.
green room right now. My wife said thanks, but you're in the green room.
it.
Yeah. All right, brother.
See you
I'll
guys.
holler at you. Yep, I'll holler at you.
All
Thank
right.
you. He was in the green room, y'all. Serena said, thanks, Bret. Yep, Bret was a great interview. Was he not? Come on. Awesome show. Thank you, Vinny. Richard, thanks. Keenan, Troy, good to see you. Trenda, what is going on with you? Listen, all of you, Trenda, let me say this real quick. Trenda, Troy, Oglesby, you're both watching right now on my Facebook page. The reason I go live on my Facebook page and on YouTube at the Fryar Place or the Fryar Place channel is because I'm trying to get those of you who keep watching me on Facebook to go over to YouTube and subscribe to the Fryar Place. So please, Trenda, Troy, go over to YouTube, search the Fryar Place, and subscribe. It's a better picture. Actually, it's 4K. You get a better picture, you get better sound than Facebook. Facebook doesn't have it going on like YouTube does. So I need you to go over. Please do me that favor. We have almost, you can be the 2,000th subscriber. We're close. We're like 50 or 40 or 50 people away. I got to check it again. 40 or 50 people away from 2,000. Yeah, we just hit 1,000 like a month and a half ago. We're almost at 2,000 now. Thanks to you all. It's amazing. Absolutely outstanding. So go over to YouTube. Search the Fryar Place, Fryar. ER is a chicken, AR, and subscribe to the Fryar Place. Hope, good to see you. Stuart Winrow, thank you, man, for all your support. You're always here. Richard, you're always here supporting. Thank you. All of you are. Actually, Hope, you are. Serena, thank you. Vinny, you're always supporting. Thank you so much. I appreciate. Troy, you're always supporting. Who else is here with us? Steve Andrews. I know, Steve, I saw you last week at the Rancocas Valley Regional High School, our alma mater, our high school alma mater. I saw you at the game. Thank you. It was good to see you. Nice hug, man. Good embrace. Yeah. Love you, bro. Love you. Thank you. Keenan, thanks for being with us today. All right. Brother Knight, thank you. I don't know if you're still around, but thank you. Just want to shout you out. Sister Sally, shout out to Sister Sally. Who else? I said Hope. I said Troy. Mama, shout out to my mama. Shout out to Rashida. Yep, that's it. I'm done. That's right. I'm in my Miami Dolphins gear. I got my little orange going on in the background. I got orange going on in the room. I don't know if you can see the orange all around. Yeah, orange and always going to have purple because that's the color. That's what we got to have. But whatever hat I'm going to have on, I'm going to have accents in the room that match the hat. Good gosh. Y'all stop tripping. Yes, I am an Eagles fan, but I am also a Miami Dolphins alumni. All right? Y'all got that? Yeah. So we're done. We'll be back next week. Got an interesting guest. I'm not going to tell you who it is. Y'all keep tuning in. I like surprising you. I like having these special guests. Y'all, Bret Boone is a special man that comes from a special family, and he was a great guest today. It just continues to enhance the Fryar Place, take us to a level where we're able to have those conversations that are fire. So, y'all, we'll be back next week, same time, same place, same purpose, to have a conversation that's fire, to continue to inspire those who are listening. God bless y'all. Stay healthy. Stay safe. Peace.